It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Garrick Jones, who is a former NFL player and a commissioner of a football league. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about, of course, how you started playing football?
Well, for me, football really wasn't my first love. I was into music and art and things of that nature, and I was the youngest of three. So, my older brothers were the ones that were the athletes, and I kind of watched them for a number of years, and they were like the best athletes I'd ever seen, to this day. And I kind of, began really growing and kind of growing into my own. And, those guys decided that they wanted to do something else outside of sports. And, I was just big, and I had the size and I always had the ability to do some things. So I had a couple of coaches, who are still my mentors to this day, kind of pull me to the side and say, we don't know how serious you are about sports, but we think that you could, go to the next level with this thing if you decided to get serious about it. So, being young, I never really took that serious until I got a little older, and then I began playing, and then I, began getting, letters from different colleges, man. And then at that point, that's when I said I probably could do something with this thing, man. So I went on ahead and got serious about it, and here we are today.
Can you talk about your playing career at Arkansas State?
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. I went to Arkansas State for the simple fact that they were independent at the time. I was recruited, by a lot of schools throughout the country, which was really good. Got a chance to go to some major universities in regards to recruiting visits and those types of things and being offered. But I had a few family things going on, so I decided to stay closer to home. I was recruited by Arkansas as well, the University of Arkansas, but at that time, I didn't feel like that would be a good mesh for me personally. So I decided to go to Arkansas State because they were independent, and I had a new head coach coming in, and he was fresh off a national championship win with Ohio State and Eddie George and those guys. So with them being independent, all of the schools that recruited me, I would have the opportunity to play against those guys and show if I really had the stuff that it taken for them to recruit me and offer me. And that's kind of what the situation was, man. It was a lot of growing pains at Arkansas State, but ultimately, I had a lot of personal victories on the field, and had the opportunity to play against a lot of guys that were drafted, and I did pretty well, and I was on a lot of scouts' radars. So, that kind of was the situation, man. It was just, trying to figure out how to maneuver and become a man and all those different things. But we got it done. We got it done.
What was the transition like for you going from college football to the NFL?
For me, I think it was a little different. I had to go the long way to get there. I ended up leaving Arkansas State after my junior year, so I was out of ball a year, and I had to go, chase scouts all over the country in order to really, be seen as somebody who was viable or had value that would bring value to an organization. So, I had to really grow up fast, and I didn't get a chance to play that senior season. So the guys that I played against and the guys I played with, those guys were on TV while I was chasing scouts throughout the country. So by the time I had the opportunity to be picked up by Jacksonville as an high priority free agent after the draft, while I was coming in, they were giving me waivers to sign, and that type of situation, as opposed to, giving guys, their signing bonuses and those things. So it was a little different, man. I had to think about retirement before I got there because of how I got there. But, by the time I got in and got rocking and rolling, I think I was a little more seasoned when it came down to really understanding, what the dynamic of the game was and the business itself. And when I got a chance to get exposed to the business, that's when I just really started soaking it all in.
Can you talk about, of course, your time at Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, it was a cool experience, man. They brought me in on a 3-day tryout, their mini camp. Got a chance to get in there and kind of run around and do some things. And after that 3 days, they gave me a contract and said, "Welcome to the NFL." And it was a cool situation. I got a chance to work up the depth chart a little bit. As far as with the being able to do a lot of things that they liked, but ultimately they signed the tackles that they had drafted. And once they did that, that's when the business kicked in, man. So I was the odd man out, and I was looking for a job after that, man. And it was real quick. It was a quick cup of coffee, but it was something that kickstarted my career. So I'm very grateful for that.
Can you talk about your time with the Winnipeg Blue Rockets?
Yeah. So when I went to Winnipeg, that's when I left Jacksonville. So I was released from Jacksonville, and within a week or so later, I was going from 111 degree weather to Winnipeg, to the Blue Bombers up in Manitoba, and it was like -3 or something like that, and raining sideways, and it was just different. It was my first real time away from home in another country where I didn't know anybody, but I think the game of football, was something that I could fall back on, and how I, dealt with teammates and learn the game itself, and just learn my teammates and my new coaches. And by the time I got in there, man, by the second day of practice, Coach Dave Ritchie, who was the head coach at the time, he looked at me and said, "Man, you're starting at left tackle. And I don't know how they missed you and how you fell through the cracks, but we're glad you're here." And man, from there, I got an opportunity to play against some really good competition. I think I missed the All-Star voting by like 2 games. Could have been Rookie of the Year if I'd have got there a couple of games earlier. Played against the SAC champion, for the last 3 years, and I didn't give a sack up on him. And man, it was good, man. It was a good experience. It's probably one of the best experiences that I've ever had when it came down to just being free and playing ball. I didn't know the plays, but I had some good veterans on the line that had played in the NFL, and they knew that I was headed back, down south to play in the league. So they said, "Man, we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you understand where to go. We'll talk to you the entire game." And that's what we did, man. And we had a blast doing it, and got pretty far in the season and into the playoffs, man. So it was a good time. It was a real good time.
Can you talk about, of course, making it back to the NFL, playing for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, it was a cool situation, man. Coming back from Winnipeg, I had the opportunity to really put on the pads and really showcase what I could do. And all the scouts that I had worked out for on the road, when I was trying to get into the NFL, those guys finally got a chance to see me in pads. And when I got back, when the season was over, it was like a whirlwind. All these different teams were calling, and they wanted to see me. So once I got back from Winnipeg, I think it was a week or so after I got back, I was on the road, going to all these different teams. So I worked out for like 12 or 13 teams in the NFL. Had the opportunity to call Willie Rofe up and kind of talk to him a little bit, because he was at Kansas City at the time, and got some advice from him. And from there, man, it was, the rest was history, man. I came on to Kansas City. They basically, used that Winnipeg season as my senior season, and they paid me 7th round money, as if I was drafted, which was really cool. And it was a good situation. Got in, learned from some veteran guys, but they ended up bringing some guys in the draft. And, the way it was explained to me was, we're going to bring these guys in their backup situation. We know that you're doing what you need to do, and you had a really good camp, but, we want to release you and bring you back. And when we do that, we'll activate you and have you, ready to rock and roll behind these guys and those types of things. But ultimately, I had did too much work. And the moment they released me after training camp, Houston picked me up. So it's one of those deals where I had did too much work, and if you cut me, I would never be back, in Kansas City. So that's how it played out.
Can you talk about, of course, now that Kansas City is about to make it to the Super Bowl? Well, they are making it to the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
back. How does that feel for you as a player that played for Kansas City?
I mean, you always want to see an organization have success. You always want to see the players have a ton of success, and for them to make it to the Super Bowl again, that's one of the hardest things in the world to do, and they're doing it, man, and doing it in a grand fashion. So, just making it to the Super Bowl is something that will give you the opportunity to be able to have those stories for life, and also it helps you when you're done and when you retire. So I'm proud of those guys for doing what they're doing. You just want to see guys succeed. So it's one of those situations, man, where I'm looking forward to a good game, and to have been in Arrowhead and played in Arrowhead, man, it's nothing like it. And it's one of those experiences that you get a chance to share with those guys. Even though we're not on the field together, they came after us, but those are some of the stories that you get a chance to share because this is a fraternity when it comes down to it.
Can you talk about your time with the Houston Texans?
The Houston Texans situation was really a good situation, in regards to, me learning business and doing things off the field. Of course, when I got there, they pretty much picked me up, from the Kansas City situation. And their situation was a little bit different. They had just paid some guys. And when you pay, guys certain amounts of money, those guys have to play. There has to be a justification in that investment. And unfortunately for myself, that had me kind of waiting in the wings a bit. And that's the hardest thing about it. It's kind of the politics of it. But it was a cool experience, man. I got a chance to really learn about the game. I got a chance to really learn about business, a chance to really talk with the scouts and learn the whole scouting scenarios and what they're looking for. I got a chance to shadow, the different front office positions. I mean, man, that was my situation. I understood that, this was going to be an opportunity for me to transition into the front office aspects of things. So that's kind of what that Houston situation was for me. And I utilized it for everything it was worth, man, and really got out in the city and really hit it from a philanthropic aspect in that space. And I was awarded a Garrick Jones Day, proclamation, from the city of Houston, for all the work that I was doing off the field. To be able to win, on and out the field was really my MO. And that's the reason why I wanted to come back to Houston and do some major things and finish what I started. So
That's
that's
so
what I'm looking.
amazing. What was your time like with the Atlanta Falcons?
Atlanta was cool, man. It was a really good situation as well. Atlanta had always wanted me, along with a lot of other teams, and they before I went to Atlanta the year before, they were really wanting me to come, then, and it was a situation where I had roots here in Houston, and I was just trying to make some things happen, had the family and all those different things. So just to pick up, it was a little different for me. But when I got to Atlanta, man, they welcomed me with open arms. I had a few things going on, personally that they knew about and they understood, and even though I got a chance to go through training camp and OTAs and all those different things with them and made the squad. I had some family issues that I had to tend to, and I didn't get a chance to stick with them as long as I would have. Wished I could have, man, because that was going to be a really good situation for me to be able to get back out on the field and showcase what I could do and just do it in an entirely new city, which I had a ton of connections there with, different people that I've dealt with in the past, from business and just from a personal level. But everything happens for a reason, and that's more or less what the situation was, man. I had a good time there, and still have some ties there to the organization right now with some upper management guys that I really got close with, and they've been monitoring me and watching, what I've been doing after my career, and we stay in contact and keep in constant contact, man. So it was really a good deal, man.
Can you talk about the transition going back to Winnipeg and what that was like?
I mean that was it was seamless, realistically, man. It's one of those deals where, I still was kind of battling a few things personally, and they understood it, but they wanted to, make sure that, I got a chance to get back up there. And when I got back up there, man, I just jumped right back in. It was kind of the same scenario. I didn't really know a lot of guys, but once I got there, we just clicked like that. I had an opportunity to play with a few guys here down south that were there, which was really cool. The whole coaching staff and the GM there, Brendan Tamman, he was a godsend, man. He really, he really helped me out in the situation. I didn't get a chance to stick around as long as I would have, because I kind of came in and got in around like the end of the season, going into the playoffs. And then I had a lot of stuff going on back home, but they understood it. They knew what it was, and they knew what the situation was before I got there. But I'm just happy to be able to get that way and help them win and get pretty far in the playoffs. And that's what we did, man.
Can you talk about your time going to the Colorado?
Well, that's I went to the Stampeders, Calgary. So I got traded from Winnipeg to Calgary, and what happened there, man, it was magical, man. Got a chance to get with some really good guys out there, and I have some connections with those guys and ties with those guys to this day. Played with Henry Burris out there. He's a perennial Hall of Famer up in the CFL, man, and it was an all-star perennial. And Nick Lewis and Keon Rambo and, man, all those guys, and Brandon Browner. And, man, we had a good time, man. It was probably one of those things where, when I got there, they didn't really know what to expect, but they had heard so much about me. And then when I got a chance to get out there and get on the field and just back up what they heard, they understood that it was serious, and they saw everything I brought to the table. But man, I mean, I just had a great time out there in Calgary, man, and we got pretty far in the playoffs. We didn't, unfortunately, we didn't get as far as I would have liked, but that kind of was the situation, man. So that's what we did, man.
Can you talk about your time in 2008 to 2009 with the Edmond Eastons?
Yeah, that was the Edmonton Eskimos. I actually went there as a free agent because that was I had a 2-year deal up there, and with Calgary picking up my contract, at the end of that, I decided I wanted to kind of go somewhere else. We had some contract situations and different things that they were wanting. They in the negotiations, and it just panned out for me to go to Edmonton. And when I got to Edmonton, man, playing with Ricky Ray and guys like that, man, it was cool. Edmonton was a really good city for me. It kind of was a little bit slower than, the Calgary situation. But at the time, man, being there with Dan Comiskey and those guys, man, it was cool being on that offensive line. We had Coach Ronnie Van Clark and, a lot of guys that were from the South, man. And it was a real cool situation. It was a family there. And we had a really good time. We really got far in the playoffs again, got really close. I think we made to the Eastern Final. Didn't get a chance to get that one. We really wanted that one, man. But, if we'd have made it through that one, we'd have went to the Grey Cup. But ultimately, for me, just to be in there and just help win, that's what it's always been about in Canada. It's always been good to me. I always joke and say I'm going to get back up there, but I really do need to get back up there as soon as we're able to travel this country, man, and get back connected to my people up there, because they really helped jumpstart my career.
Can you talk about, of course, after your last trip in the football, what was the transition like to make it from being a player to now how you are a commissioner and CEO of a football league?
Well, for me, once again, it all boils down to the things that I've been involved in, the things I've been exposed to. In those instances, and those are the things that I always said, if I ever had the opportunity, I would like to create an opportunity for other players that came about after me, because I always knew that there were always going to be other players, and I knew that the NFL couldn't house everybody. The CFL can't house everybody. So there's always going to be more players than leagues. And what I wanted to do was kind of bridge the gap between business and the actual game itself, because, as I was playing, we never talked about those things. We never talked about financial literacy. We never talked about mental health. We never talked about investments, insurances, and those things that you need to have when you're done. And I said, well, if we can put that together and bridge that gap, that's exactly what we'll do, because that's going to breed longevity for the league to be able to teach and expose and give everybody the principles that they need to be pillars of society outside of just the X's and the O's. And that's not just the players, but that's everybody involved with the actual league itself. So that way we could be self-sustainable. and always have revenue coming back to us from businesses that we help these athletes and their families get into and start. So we get a chance to override those things. So it was always about the business component. It was always about being able to play some good football, but knowing that you can't play forever, but you can leave a legacy and those types of things for your family and take care of your families from the grave. And that's what a lot of athletes want, but they don't necessarily get that in these other leagues. So, it just made sense to just look at everything that I've been through, all the different leagues that I've been a part of, all the different general managers that I've dealt with, all the different scouts, and just be able to bring all that together under one roof and really, set it up to where it's a beneficial situation for everybody. And that's what we did, man.
Can you talk about some of the challenges that you have faced with starting this league with the NFL, the CFL, the XFL, and the AFL, also like kind of in the same niche of the league?
Well, that's the thing that separates us from everybody else. Everybody else is just football. With us, we are intentional about what we do. So there's really not any competition when it comes down to that, because 70% of what we do is the stuff that's off the field. And then the 30% is what goes into what's on the field. With other leagues that I've been a part of, a lot of stuff is reactive and not proactive. A lot of the things that, go on with the mentoring and the mentee relationships, the business relationships, the learning how to network, the learning how to talk, the learning how to, relate your mind state. All those things, they may do different things, but it's for a short period of time. And then it's back to the X's and the O's and back to the money and back to the ball. But with us, our situation is just that. It's about developing these athletes and their families on and off the field, but also giving them things that they're going to be able to do, 365 days, as opposed to just doing things during the season. So, I always say, man, compared to the SDFL, everything else is just football. And it's the truth, because we are developing families. We are developing communities. We are a league that gives back 365 days a year, and it'll be a forever type of situation, because we're all about generating generational wealth. Whether it be the money, whether it be the knowledge, all those different things. And with us, it's a bi-weekly situation. So one week we focus on the game, and then the next week we focus on all the different aspects of life, the mental health, the financial literacy, the business, setting up, these athletes and teaching them how to brand themselves with social proof, everything that you can think of that they would need in order to be successful when they're done playing. Because if I can teach you how to hunt, you're going to go out and teach somebody else how to do the same thing. And the league itself gets an opportunity to get percentages of everything that's made monetarily that comes back to the league. So we are a self-sustainable league. So once again, the XFL, the CFL, the NFL, IFL, AFL, not a knock on those leagues or anything like that, because those leagues gave me my opportunity. But what I did was I looked at what they were doing, and we wanted to figure out, what worked and what didn't work. And we wanted to take it a step further. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Can you talk about, of course, who are some of the people in your league, and when do y'all play your season?
For our season, it runs congruent with the CFL and NFL. And what that does is it gives us an opportunity to have players that, have been on the bubble, guys that have been cut from the NFL and CFL. They get a chance to come down and play. And then when the injury bug hits, these guys are ready to go back with a bit of a more of a veterans mentality, because what we've done and what we're doing and how we will, resume when we get back into physical play is a lot of the athletes that have played the game that, are from different parts of the country that are part of the NFLPA. I can tap into these guys because these guys want to be coaches and scouts and GMs and everything else. It'll give them an opportunity to get their reps as well as referees, so on and so forth. Everybody gets the opportunity to develop. And then when the injury bug hits, these guys that are playing on the field can physically go back to these NFL squads and those types of things. But what we've done since 2012 is we beta tested, each sector of this deal. We did 3 years of games, but games are easy. Anybody can line up and play the game. The biggest thing for us was to make sure that we had the curriculums. We were able to teach from these testimonies, put together everything that these athletes would need, all these different business programs, the strategic partners, everything you can think of in order to make sure that this thing was going to run seamlessly when we go live seriously. So since 2012, we beta tested. We played a couple of seasons, and we saw that we can do that and be successful at that. But our main focus is making sure that 365 days a year, we're operating. But as far as a physical season, that'll go the same time as the CFL and NFL, just because we are a developmental situation and we want our athletes to be able to go there. So they come here to go there. And that's exactly what we've set up.
Who are some of the teams that you have in your league?
Well, the teams and how it works is each state will have 2 to 4 teams, depending on the size of the state. And those teams will play each other in order to have whoever has the best record will then represent that state in the actual playoffs of the SDFL. So each state will play against each other, and the best state, whoever that is, will be the SDFL champion at some point.
Can you talk about, of course, like with each state having at least 2 teams, how difficult is it for the stadiums? Like, do you have to share the stadiums? For example, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to share it from the Heinz Field? Or is it like that? Or do you have your particular stadium for?
Well, for us, what it is since it's a developmental situation, you want stadiums that are no more than 5,000 to 10,000 seats. That way you have a pretty good crowd. And from there, you're not incurring all of these expenses that you would at a Heinz Field or at an NRG, because we're not the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So it gives us an opportunity to get in the municipal stadiums or high school stadiums and play some good ball, get some good game film, and get these guys to the next level. If they get the opportunity to go, we want to make sure that they're ready mentally, number one, and then physically, that's the easy part. But if they're not necessarily getting that opportunity to go to the NFL, from there, we look at the different things that we can put them in. So we've had close to 65 guys in a lot of these shows that you see on TV playing football players, in movies, commercials, all these Gatorade commercials, the guys in the background, those are our guys, because we have a casting agency within the league. So we want to make sure that they have as many different options to make money as possible and also be seen, because everybody can't go to the league, but everybody's going to have bills, babies, and problems. So what we want to do is focus on that. And then the guys that have that opportunity and the stars align and they're ready to rock and roll, they'll get the opportunity and they'll be ready for it.
Do you have any former NFL players that people would know about in your league?
I mean, guys you saw on Sundays. A lot of these guys are part of coaching staffs. I mean, it's just way too many guys. The NFL, like I say, realistically, can't house all of the former players. So when guys want to go back and coach and scout, they basically have to start over. You know what I'm saying? So you don't get that opportunity. So, with how the NFL works, it's the same way for the coaching staffs and, upper management and GMs and all those different things. They don't have enough spots. So you might have guys that have played on Sundays, those types of things that are part of, advisory boards for the league, those types of things. So, I mean, it's just way too many guys, man. So we like to just operate and do what we do. The guys are a part of it. I'm on the NFLPA I'm on the board, with the Houston chapter. So I have access to all these guys. I'm an alumni. So I can tap the phone and say, hey, man, you're looking at coaching or scouting, and we call guys up and say, hey, look, we're going to be doing some things in North Carolina. We'd like for you to come out and help us with some scouting, and, guys will tap in and we go from there.
Can you talk about, of course, you said you were on the Houston, like you're still connected with Houston. Can you talk about your role as like part of the GM?
Well, as far as with the Texans or being on the PA, the NFLPA Houston chapter?
Both.
Well, from the PA, the Houston chapter, I'm the treasurer and I'm on a board of that, and basically what we do, man, is we try to connect with all of the former athletes, especially in Houston, because Houston has one of the biggest populations of former guys that played in the NFL. So with that being said, we try to get together, put together different events, different things just for us to get together and really, socialize and reconnect. And then from there, business wise, we try to see what guys have going on and what they're trying to get into. And then we kind of run from there once we get a chance to see what happens. But, from the NFLPA aspect, I was elected president of the Huddle Up Foundation of Houston, which is the nonprofit leg of the PA out here. And from there, man, we get these guys running in their initiatives, whether it be, childhood obesity, cancer research, or whatever their initiatives are, whatever's on their hearts. We try to get these athletes involved, and now we're back in the communities, really making a significant difference because we're no longer playing. So we have a lot more time to be able to do different things. So, that's been a blessing, man, to be a part of that and really get back into the philanthropic side of everything. And that's really been the focus for myself. But in regards to the GM situation, with the Houston Texans, I had a petition out, wanting to have an opportunity to interview with the team and the organization, because I felt I had all of the answers that they were needing in regards to getting this thing on the road and bringing a Super Bowl to town, and that's the same with any other team that wanted to bring me in, because a lot of the principles that I have within my developmental league goes, for all the guys that are playing and current guys. So, that petition and that whole campaign lasted about 11 months, which I got a lot of different people, behind it, as far as, the different numbers of people that, wanted me to be a part of this deal. And just kind of show these different organizations the value that I would bring to the table, would be it a dollar amount that I would bring through the door just from the level of influence, and also just the know-how and the business aspect of it. And then from scouting to the actual salary cap. And then on top of that, being able to connect with the generation of players that are out there right now, because I am a former player. So that kind of was the situation. And the Texans chose to go another direction, of course, and they're kind of going through their thing. So I'm praying and pulling for them, man. Hopefully they can get that situation rectified and can kind of get that thing leveled off. But, in the event that they would call and say, hey, look, we want you to be a part of this thing, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because I love the organization, and I have a vested interest in it. So that's kind of what the situation is right now. So
What advice would you give upcoming NFL players looking to get into either the NFL, CFL, or any professional football league?
I would just tell those guys to keep believing in themselves. Understand that, and the reality of the deal is this, less than 1% of all athletes make it to the NFL. So when you come into it with that realization and that reality, that puts you ahead of everybody else because you understand the numbers. And it's really a numbers game. When you're in high school and in college, a lot of times the athletes were the guys that were walking the halls. And it's the same, with the NFL. Everybody can't go. But ultimately, if you do get the opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. You got to take it for what it's worth. It's a privilege, it's probably one of the, I would say probably one of the most difficult places to get into, but it's one of the easiest ways to get out. I have yet to see an athlete leave on their terms. And that's kind of what the deal is. When you're a competitor and you're an athlete, you want to continue to play. But the NFL isn't structured like that. The moment you sign that contract, you're on your way out. And there's always going to be somebody younger and somebody cheaper than you coming through the door. So you got to take it for what it's worth. But for those guys trying to get there, there's more than one way to get there. You can take the long road like myself, or you can go and do some different things. So, whatever your path is, you just got to be true to yourself, and you got to believe in yourself, even when other people around you, lack that belief. You got to see it. And that's what it's all about.
What advice would you give professional athletes that are put down the football and now making it into the real world like you, that made a league of their own?
Game. It's not the end all. It's a platform. It doesn't matter what FL it is. Use that to catapult yourself and do bigger and better things. You always have to have, whether you're competing as a fan out the days, and those fan bases can be monetized. It's just all about figuring out how to brand yourself, figuring out how to take, what you're doing to the next level, and just utilizing all these different platforms. It's kind of like with myself, I knew that, the NFL was going to be a platform for me to do major things. And that's exactly what, we're trying to partake in right now and just leverage everything that has happened. And, for me, that's my stamp. That's my badge. That's something they can't take from me. So I want to utilize that to make sure that, I'm helping the new group that's coming up behind me. And at the same time, setting my family up for life. And that's exactly what I intend to do.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Oh man, I'm pretty much everywhere. They can find me on IG at officially Garrick Jones. LinkedIn at Commissioner GJ. The same thing with Twitter, Commissioner GJ, or they can just search me out. Garrick Jones. Go to Google or whatever search engine you prefer, and something will pop up. I promise. I'm active, man. I'm always doing something, and I'm not hard to find, man. They can find me.
Thank you again for your interview and best of luck as commissioner of the State Developmental League.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Garrett, for your interview and best of luck.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.